Al Brown used to be a farmer. Fifth generation out of Michigan, just north of Jackson, the middle of the state. In 1990, Harold adopted a plant-based diet and became an ethical vegan in 1997. He's a friend of Howard Lyman, who used to be a cattle farmer as well. Harold had an epiphany after meeting a steer named Snickers, after the Snicker bar, at an animal sanctuary. He felt sympathy for the cattle, which transformed him. And he mentioned also that as a child working on the farm, he had some feelings about the way the animals were treated. When he went to Cleveland, he found a support group which pushed Harold on the vegan path. He was a mechanic at the time and exposed to vegan principles and practices, which Harold embraced. Harold strongly recommends a website entitled Exposing the Humane Myth, Living a Morally Consistent Life. So at this moment, please give a very warm welcome to Harold Brown.
Thank you. And thank you for all being here. You having fun?
Yeah.
All right. Did you get enough to eat?
Yeah.
All right. If not, we can raid that truck later. You got anything left? Oh, they do have stuff left. Okay. Well, let me make a little addendum. The website that I recommend is called Humane Myth, and it's humanemyth.org. It was something I helped to, and Lee and a few other people had helped construct. Howard was another person, about developing a website, not just for activists, but for the general public. And sometimes vegans give me a hard time to say, well, you know, the word vegan doesn't appear on that website, on the front page or anything. I said, yeah, because it isn't for you. I said, isn't that what education is about? It's about reaching the people that you're trying to educate on something they don't know anything about. So what it is a website that goes as deep as anybody wants to learn about every animal commodity that's out there and every animal. So it starts out with a page that is kind of innocuous, but here it is. And it's put together from people who have experience in animal agriculture, or agribusiness, I should say, people who have worked in sanctuaries, and those who have had their own experiences and are deep thinkers in this, like James Select and Lee and so on, that are way smarter than I am. So we put all this together, and it's a website so people can go and say they pick eggs, so they can start reading and going. And the more they click, the deeper they go down the rabbit hole. And they'll learn everything they need to know about how the whole process works and how it gets to the table. But it also goes through a lot of other stuff, is what we're going to talk about. And it's basically this idea of the humane myth. Okay, how many stores do you go in now and you see products, whether it's flesh, whether it's eggs, whether it's dairy products, that say humanely raised or humanely slaughtered?
Yeah.
Well, everybody sitting here knows that's balderdash.
Right.
But the thing is it's codified by the federal government, because there is a Humane Slaughter Act going on. And the USDA organic standards, while they don't specifically get into what humane practices are, they basically say that there are certain things that have to be provided for an animal. But if you study language at all, and unfortunately I've got a background in linguistics, there's one word that's in the USDA organic standards. If you go to that and then scroll down and down and down until you get to the chapter on animals, there's one word that is so mushy that it makes just about anything possible. So they say that the language of it goes that, well, let's take dairy cows, for instance. So if you've got dairy cows, they're going to spend they're just about their whole lives inside of a barn and moving from one big feed barn to a milking parlor and back and forth, twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, in a 24-hour period, and get milk, and then go back to be fed, come back to get milk. Well, organic standards make it sound great because they say that these cows must have access to fresh air, sunshine, and pasture. Okay, there's the problem, the word access. Now these barns, and you've probably driven by them, they're long, they've got these canvas roll-up windows on the sides, shades like that can go up. So if you roll those up on a sunny day, in the arc of the sun going through the sky, they'll be, for a little while, those cows will have a little sunshine on them. For an hour or two maybe. And then, fresh air, well, they've got fans at the one end of the building, and with these windows rolled up, the window blows through, they have access to fresh air. Access to pasture. Now, for all of those of us that live in the frozen wasteland of the North and the Midwest, how do you do that? Well, access to pasture, baled hay, is just cut dried pasture. So you give them a slice of hay, they now have access to what was once pasture. So, sounds all, rosy and everything for these cows. It's not. It's not. And the terms that they come up with for marketing this stuff, like, who wants to throw one up? Give me one of those logos that they put on packaging to free range, grass fed, pasture based, from contented cows. Oh Jesus! This is a milk that came out last year. A new company that is marketing mammary excretion of bovine. What's the name of it? Fairlife. I don't know if you've seen that. It's big in New York. Fairlife milk. If you guys know what it is for the life of a dairy cow is. There's nothing fair about that life at all. But this is what's interesting. It's the language they use to make consumers feel good about what they're buying. And why do they need to do this? Well, there's an interesting dynamic that's gone on in our society. If you go and look at the USDA website for the agricultural census, we do it every 10 years. We're coming up on one pretty soon. In 1950, does anybody want to take a guess at the percentage of the population of the United States that produced food?
25. 50.
50.
80.
You're pretty close. Yeah, you got, no, not that high. It was about 48% in 1950. Does anybody want to take a guess of what it is as of the last census?
5%.
This is 9 years ago.
5.
5. 10. 8. 3. 0.8.
Get out of here.
And that's according to the USDA's agricultural census. Now, of that 0.8, we'll just say it's 1%, just for clarity in our minds. 1% of that 1% that's producing all the food in the United States, it is 2/3 of that 1% produce, or no, it's 1/3 of that 1% is producing 66.6% of all the food in the United States. This is the corporate consolidation of food production in the United States. We went from having nearly half of the population in the United States producing food for the market in 1950 down to less than 1%. And that less than 1% takes into account all of your little farms, all your hobby farms, all of your small scale farms, anything under 5,000 animals, vegetable farms, roadside stands, that's all counted. That's all part of it. There is a shift in this, though. There are farmers who are young people, millennials in particular, who are going back to the land. And they're farming. Unfortunately, a lot of them are buying into this paleo crap and other stuff And they're, by and large, raising pigs and goats.
Oh, wow.
In our area, New York and Western New York, it's crazy. It's insane, the amount of people, these young people are raising pigs. And but they say, it's humane. It's connecting back to your food, and so on and so forth. They have so many stories to tell themselves. And here's something just from an activist point of view. When you engage people like this, and you talk to them, and you ask them, why do you do this? Why do you feel it's necessary to raise these animals? Or why do you feel it's necessary just to eat animal products? And then actively listen to what they're saying, the language they're using. It's the language of addiction.
Mm.
It's the way it's no different than listening to an alcoholic or anybody else who has substance abuse problem. It's the same language, the same rationale, because they don't know exactly why they're doing it, but they do it. And any kind of moral consideration outside of themselves is moot. Which, for people with substance abuse, those moral questions, what am I doing to my family? What am I doing to my partner? What am I doing in society at large? That's not a question that they ask themselves. So that's why the language reflects from one to the other. The labeling gets crazy too. For instance, how many of you have seen vegetarian eggs?
Mm.
Okay, you got to think about that for a minute. If you know how chickens are raised and what they are as a being who eats basically everything that's on the ground, they eat insects, they eat worms, they eat seeds, plants, grass, a little bit of everything. But if they're 100% vegetarian fed, but they're also called on the same package as free range vegetarian fed chickens. That means they spent their whole life in a barn being fed grain. They never went outside. They never saw the sunshine. In the dark, by and large, but if they're free range, the way the end run on that is, again, that word access. So all they have to do is put a little door in the side of the barn, and then they usually have a gravel area with a chain link fence around it. They can go out and run around it. But the thing is they found out that they don't like to do that. Why? Because as soon as they stick their head up, they look up. There's no overhead protection from predators, so they don't tend to use it. But they have access to it, therefore it's not false advertising. Now, the other aspect of this is that while we call it the happy meat phenomenon, people are always looking for a pass on continuing to do the things they shouldn't be doing. Or as my friend Howard Lyman says, people like good news about bad habits. Well, for instance, let's take these legislative propositions that come up every so often to ban certain cage practices, whether it's crazy cages. Well, if you ever read, you can go online, because whenever these things become a proposition in the state, you can go online and read the proposition. The word ban or eliminate doesn't exist in any of these propositions. But they're telling activists, they're banning cages. Go out and grab, and let's get, the signatures we need to get this on the ballot. And it's usually referendums. But in any case, they need this to get done. So they're basically lying to well-meaning activists for them to go out and be the army to get the signatures. But the surprising thing is when you look at how this plays out in the marketplace, people will go to, in most states, will pass these things unanimously because these are consumers going to vote. They go in and say, I voted to ban confinement cages in my state. Mm-hmm. But I got curious about this. How does this actually play out? There's a agricultural market service. And guess what? It's called USDA AMS, Agricultural Market Service. Every 24 hours, they're putting every commodity sold in the United States is on there. Animals, fruits, nuts, seeds, vegetables. everything that gets scanned in a grocery store ends up in that database for the USDA. Well, I kept track of this, so every month I was looking at, this is California that I looked at, and when Proposition 2 was going on there. So I was looking every month. And at the end of 2 months, people in certain animal organizations were saying, this is a victory. We won. And I said, no, you didn't win. Why? Because they said, because the sale of caged eggs went down by 4%. Yeah, they did. You go to the EMS, went down by 4%. But the sale of cage-free eggs that are marked as cage-free went up 26%. Because these initiatives take 10 to 12 years for their implementation. But when people go in and vote, they made a moral decision on their part, they feel. And they go to the store thinking it's happened overnight. And the net effect of what happens to the animals is zero. But the people believe, it gives them a pass on this. And they feel good about themselves. They feel good about their purchases. And unfortunately, we have a few large animal advocacy organizations that promote this stuff. And they're blindsiding us in the work we're trying to do. Because the most important thing you can do is to understand what veganism means to you. I think the definition that Lee gave you, and the framework she gave you, and I encourage you to read her book, because it's a workbook on how to understand what animal liberation is and what we're about. Mm-hmm. But the thing is the most important thing you have to do is to protect your activism. We have to find ways that we can identify, we self-identify what we do, and we value it, or even as a community. The people that we work with, people that hold the same principles and values as you do. But you need to protect it, because it's not only the industry that's going to try to co-opt and manage you. Again, James Levesque has a great essay that you can read on the Tribe of Heart website. It's called Invasion of the Movement Snatchers. The meat industry went to a Madison Avenue PR firm. It was RDJ or something like that. Anyway, they asked him, how can we manage, not control, but manage, not get rid of, but manage activists? He said, yeah, it's pretty simple, because we've done it in other fields, environmentalism and human rights and other areas. They said, this is the template. When you read it, you're going to go, oh my God, it's so simple. But then you'll start seeing how it's played out in so many different ways, in so many different arenas, but it definitely played out in the animal movement. And when you realize this, when you see the modus operandi of how the industry figured out to manage us, then you say, okay, I can see the forest through the trees. Mm-hmm. And now I know how to protect my activism. Because it happens, unfortunately. And I would pull the curtain open so you could see the wizard, but I can't do that for you. Buddha was right. Buddha said the only truth in life are the things you directly experience. Those are the things you can hold on to, and you say, I know for damn sure that this is true, are the things you've directly experienced. Everything you've read, everything you've been told, those are beliefs. And if the beliefs are strong enough, they become a faith. But still, it's not a truth. It's not your truth. And each of our truths is a little different. Every person is different. There isn't like this universal idea or this universal truth that's written in stone. It's none of it. But there are core principles that we have to adhere to and we have to protect. And this comes to the other part of the title of this talk, Striving to Live a Morally Consistent Life. From my background, this has been a really tough thing to do. My indoctrination was so deep into herding culture that when I started learning about animal rights theory, animal liberation theory, and I started to, that's why in the introduction, I was somebody who had a plant-based diet for 6 years. And in 1997, that's when I became a vegan. It's because I had this intellectual framework in my head. It was academic. But until the head and the heart come together, you're not working as a whole. I'll be quick about this. So we strive, and in the striving, well, actually,
It's thunder and lightning.
there's certain bits of wisdom I carry around with me. And bear with me. It's falling apart. I better retype it. But when it comes, striving is an important word to me, because the thing is anybody perfect at being a vegan? No, there's no such thing as a perfect vegan. Because I drive a car, I kill insects. Am I perfect? Hell no. But this is what someone once said. A principle is a principle, and in no case can it be watered down because of our incapacity to live it in practice. We have to strive to achieve it, and the striving should be conscious, deliberate, and hard. Gandhi said that. That is what striving is. Do we ever attain perfection? No, and we never will. But that doesn't mean that we're not to work as damn hard as we can toward that end, toward those principles, towards those values. Because the world is going to be a better place. It's becoming a better place already, man. The way veganism is spreading and this thought process is working, this goes back to the thing about why the industry is scrambling to figure they're losing market share in dairy, believe it or not, huge time. Plant-based milks are taking over. They're outselling cow dairy right now.
Good.
Yay! We're producing more milk than we ever did. So where does that go? Right, it's 10-to-1 concentration. It's the most effective way of getting rid of excess fluid milk. So watch television and see the advertisements for how much more cheese can they put on a pizza? How much more? I was thinking about this the other day when I used to see when I was a kid. I used to see a Little Caesars commercial. It's get a pizza and get garlic sticks. They don't even advertise garlic sticks anymore. It's mozzarella sticks. That just dawned on me the other day. Yeah, double cheese. But the thing is, people are shifting, and why? There's this guy who is that'd be nice. He's a spokesperson for the animal industry. And I run into him at Cornell when he visits and I have coffee with him. And he is on just about every ag radio and television station across the Midwest. And what Howard Lyman is to our movement, he is to the meat and dairy industry. And feed stuff industry too. Well, I was talking to him and I said, so what's your biggest challenge? He said that people don't know farm animals. I said, yeah, that's what sanctuaries are for. He said, screw you. He said, that's not what I'm talking about. And it was a good point. He said, we have to figure out a way to open the barn doors a little bit wider so people can see a little more what's going on, but only enough that makes them feel good. Now, why is that? Well, it's because we are now a little over a generation in America. Think 1950, think today. Most people live in urban areas. And the only way they can think of animals is with domesticated companion animals. So cats, dogs, iguanas, birds. And the thing is that their own market research has shown that when people think of farm animals, they have no concept. It's such an abstract to think of what a cow is, other than how they anthropomorphize through their commercials that they're these happy, beautiful, fuzzy animals and happy pigs and happy animals. But they anthropomorphize them to be something, even someone who speaks English. So the problem is for them is that the only way that consumers will think of farm animals is that they will anthropomorphize them through their companion animals, cats and dogs. And that's getting to be a bigger and bigger problem. This is where we're winning. It's because as people do more work with rescues and get to know these individuals that we are taking care of, cats and dogs in our lives, and then we think of them and the individuals, the persons that they are, and then help people make that connection that for farm animals it's no different. It's no different. And this is undoing the industry in the United States because of our really messed up advertising that they do. But they've created their own monster. And now we just got to steer Frankenstein back toward it. So a lot of good things are happening. And it's happening faster and faster. So I would like to say thank you for being here. Protect your activism. And let's beat the rain, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Hal.